Hello, Bible readers. So I'm making use of Professor Eugene Boring's commentary on Revelation, and he said what you need in order to have insight and appreciate this letter is to understand these two simple sentences. The last book of the Bible is a pastoral letter to Christians in Asia in the late first century who were confronted with a critical religio-political situation from a Christian prophet who wrote in apocalyptic language and imagery. So I spent the last few posts unpacking just that first sentence. I'm not going to spend as much time on the second, just today actually. But in that second sentence, he says, like the Bible in general, there is some difficulty in understanding Revelation, but it can and should be understood, for it has had enormous influence on religion, history, and culture, and has an urgently needed message for the contemporary church. So I would agree there is some difficulty, not just in reading the whole Bible, but in understanding Revelation. So that's comforting to hear from him. And as the professor says, the Bible is, after all, historical literature expressed in the languages and through cultures of a long-gone age and a faraway part of the world, written within religious concepts that are completely alien to us, like animal sacrifice, for example. Like, what category do we even put that in? We do not resonate with a good, burning of turtle doves, So, okay, the Bible is hard to understand, but does that mean the only people who should read it are people like me, privileged with a calling that the church agrees to, pays me for, and it's a calling that says, okay, sit in your office for hours every week, just study this book so the rest of us can maybe understand a little bit of it? There's plenty of the church who still would answer that question, yes, that only the clergy should read the Bible, that lay people should just, trust the clergy. That's not how Lutherans do it at all, of course. But we also don't just say anyone gets to have their opinion based on nothing of what the Bible is trying to say without being well informed. Boring puts it this way: a sincere reader of the Bible can be addressed by the Word of God when they read the Bible. He says, we may be grateful that God does not wait on our perfect understanding before addressing us with his word. Right, but this is different from understanding. And the analogy he makes is every traveler in a foreign country knows what it's like to be addressed. You might even get the gist of what is being said, like a functional understanding, but truly understanding the language and the customs of a foreign country or the Bible is difficult, and it requires study. And that's why you're here, to move beyond the Bible simply addressing you. The good news is for you, but you're here doing this to understand. And so am I, actually. The thing about Revelation, well, there's a couple things. Number one, that it's written in the apocalyptic genre makes it especially hard to understand, because not only do we need to do a lot of historical study and such, but we have to learn about what apocalyptic literature is trying to do and not do. And then beyond that, and again, this is a Professor Boring point that I agree with completely, as difficult as Revelation is to understand, the chief difficulty about Revelation isn't actually academic or historical study or anything to do with the form of the literature. Revelation's message is hard because it is so other. The ultimate power of the universe is represented by a slaughtered lamb. Like, Revelation challenges all the messages of what this world is really about, of what is true, who has true power, how power really can be wielded, and what that power can mean to this world. It's all upside down, out of left field, and too wonderful for many of us to ever believe. And so lots of people, good Christian people, don't. They just don't believe it. And instead of receiving a message that actually, like most academics agree on, some interpreters have gone full conspiracy mode on this letter, twisting it into something it clearly is not, doing mental and spiritual gymnastics in order to forge a message that suits their judgy, self-serving wants rather than a vision that belongs to God. And I'm going to get to that in the next post. But one final word on what Revelation is. Hard to understand, yes, but can be understood, yes. I mean, John of Patmos fully expected the people of the 7 churches who had received his letter to understand what he was saying. And so can we. But we aren't going to read it as though it's a big allegory written to no one in particular, with no particular circumstance in mind. Can it speak to a 2023 issue? Of course. Was John of Patmos writing something down that couldn't have much meaning until 2023? No. In church history, some Protestants saw the Pope as the beast. Unsurprisingly, some Roman Catholics saw Martin Luther as the beast. We're not doing that at all. Revelation is a letter from the first century for people who lived in the first century. Before we determine what it could mean to us, this Bible Reader's Deep Dive is going to study what it meant to the recipients of this letter then. It's worth our efforts. It's worth 5 to 10 minutes a day, because how can a Christian know whether we're proclaiming, whether what we're proclaiming, whether how we vote, whether our priorities we have in this life, how can we know if we're following Jesus if we don't even know what the promises of God are, what the vision of God is, what we're invited to hope for? Like, imagine someone asking about your vacation to some amazing destination that you're about to go on. And they're like, what are you most excited about? And you're like, I don't know. Like, I don't even look at any of the pictures of what I'm about to see or read any of the brochures. I'm not even sure how I'm going to get there. It's also hard to understand, Oh, okay. Like, it's worth a Christian's time to read their Bible all the way to the end, so that when people ask, we'd have a hope that's maybe even obvious. Also, if we don't read it and offer a faithful interpretation of what Revelation is about, someone else is going to read it and offer their own interpretation. Someone maybe who's less faithful, maybe more self-interested. So I'm going to be honest, this is what has motivated me over these last 20 years to understand Revelation more. The Rapture, the Left Behind book series, there's been so much spiritually damaging garbage rooted in Revelation that I have felt duty-bound to stand up for what it really says. Revelation is worth our time because it informs our politics too. It moves us away from a selfish idea of God saving just little old me and my dirty little soul, as though we are after death, all just perched on our own little cloud. Like, that's not the vision Revelation offers. Revelation talks about a whole saved new city full of many, a whole new Jerusalem for everyone where the gates are never closed. I don't get my own cloud. Revelation has sparked the imaginations of artists like Michelangelo and architects who built medieval cathedrals and composers like Handel as he wrote Messiah, literature like Dante's Divine Comedy, even politicians like Martin Luther King Jr., whom we honor the day this post is dropped in 2023. Revelation is worth our time because it has meant a lot to the church and to our whole culture over centuries. And it can mean just as much, maybe even more, in our own time. Tomorrow I'm probably going to get a little bit animated because I'm going to talk about what Revelation is not. And that fires me up a little bit. I am one with my God. My God is with us, all of us, at all times and in all places.